We have a very important lecture here today because it illustrates so much of what I talk about on a regular basis. For example, just last night I had the privilege of sitting down with the world champion heavyweight Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King. It was a true pleasure and it was a serendipitous experience in as much as it was unplanned, but I made it happen. And the question is, how did I do it in that case? And how have I done it in many cases past? So often when I'm talking to you about prosperity, wealth, and success, I often mention the concept of positioning, putting yourself in the right position. I often talk about birds of a feather flock together. That goes for the winners as well as the losers. And the question is, when you want to assume a new feather, increase your prosperity, how do you do that, right? Let me give you a little story. And this was ironic because it was one part spiritual, but it was most parts decision making on a consistent basis. Because what you need to know is that advantage, well, that comes from you carving out small advantages over time. Every time you can get a leg up on someone else, every time you can successfully cut a corner, meaning take a straighter path, you should do it. That's what success is, the accumulation of small advantages over time. So for example, just yesterday, I said, you know what, I'm gonna take a day off to myself because I'm often around so many people, whether it's friends, family, loved ones, people working for me. So I want to be alone. So I went to rusticate in the Wynn Resort, in the Bellagio Resort, which is one of the nicest ones out in Las Vegas. And it came dinner time and I was pretty hungry and I decided to go to the most expensive restaurant. And that's generally what I decide to do because as I often tell you guys about positioning, just imagine, you go to a middle tier restaurant and you pay $40 for your meal at Vegas because it's pretty expensive. Or you go to the most expensive restaurant, maybe you pay an extra 30, an extra 40 bucks. But what you've done by making that decision is you've now spent a mere 20, 40, 30 bucks extra. Now you're around a whole different class of people, a whole higher caliber of individual. So I go into this restaurant as an invited VIP guest, and they sit me in some of the nicest scenery there, which was the outside patio, and they were kind enough to sit me next to the fireplace. And so it's a gorgeous view. And as I'm having the bread before they bring my main course, it was getting a little bit nippy. Your boy's wearing shorts, right? And so when the waiter comes back, I say, it's a little bit chilly out here. You mind taking me inside? Now, mind you, I'm getting a lot of privileges here because I just showed up without any reservation. And as you know, due to the restrictions, you usually got to make a reservation in restaurants. And now that Vegas is back cracking and everyone's here, things are really filled up, right? So anyways, he says, no problem, Mr. Burton. Just give me a moment. I'll find somewhere to get you set up. Enjoy the bread. We'll get everything moved. Just give me a moment. So he leaves, comes back out, said, we have a great seat for you. I'll grab all your things. Just follow so-and-so. So I follow so-and-so. I sit down at a nice plush couch and, the table's all set up and, I'm sitting there, going through my phone, chopping it up with Jabrizi Magic. We're talking about the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, you dig? And I get my food, enjoy the food, and I hear a voice that was really distinct and familiar. Now, mind you, I've not looked around the restaurant at all at this point because I've been, having a little conversation, enjoying my meal. And I hear a very distinct voice, like a foreign voice, very gravelly, foreign. And I turn around and it is no other than the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, world champion boxer, heavyweight. And I was like, no kidding. Now, why is he in the same restaurant that I'm in? Well, it's the best restaurant. That's what they say, right? But definitely it's the most expensive restaurant. I think it's one of 10 restaurants in America that have Kobe beef, which is a very expensive cut of meat. I think it's like $5,000 to get a good serving of this meat with no sides, right? So I look back, I'm like, oh man, that's Tyson Fury. Now, the thing is, in this very upscale restaurant, the expectation is that because everyone's very wealthy and very civilized, you're not going to become a fan in there. So, the celebrities can go there and eat in peace. And because there's a lot of VIPs, the staff knows how to deal with everyone and section you off. Well, they sat me right next to him. I just didn't look around. And then I just happened to hear him talking. And I looked at it, I was like, well, there he is. Now, here's the thing. Everyone has to do their job, right? The wait staff, their job is to grovel and make you feel like you're a VIP and keep everything nice and give you great service. And at that point, my job became like, this is a man I admire. I'd like to have a word, and for sure your boy needs a photo. Now, I've been around a lot of famous people. I've never once wanted a photo or an autograph. But as a fellow pugilist, as one who loves the sweet science, I was like, nah. Yeah, I'm a fan today. You dig? So anyways, I look back at him, and then I get on my phone. I was like, no kidding. So I do the camera facing myself because you can see me and you can see him in the background at the same time. I was like, that sure is him. And I can hear him talking. And then so I message Bridget. I say, hey, Bridget, I'm sitting by Tyson Fury. I was like, should I pay for his group's meal, or should I send over a bottle of champagne? I was like, nah, I'd love to have a photo with the gentleman. And she was like, nah, that's not a good idea. You don't have to spend any money. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. And as a business guy, I should always be thinking, how can I get the job done without spending money? So often when your account rises up, you get into the foolish mindset of trying to solve all of your challenges with money. And especially when you're poor, you think money will solve all of your problems. I promise you it won't. Anyways, I was like, that's a good point, Bridget. And then I thought logically, because here's the problem, whether you're dealing with women, a woman you find attractive, or you're dealing with someone you admire, you begin to get emotional. You stop thinking logically. And then I got back into my normal mindset outside of being a real fan of his work. And I said, what sense would it make for a wealthy guy to pay for another wealthy guy's food? And he can pay for his own food. It's a gesture, but it doesn't rank very high when it's easy for him to do it. It's easy for me to do. It's easy for anyone in the restaurant to do, which is why we're all here, because we're in the same income bracket. So we can assume that we are all well off, and to pay for someone else's meal is a small token of something that's easy to give, which money is easy to give. So I said, maybe I can give my respect. So anyways, in this particular restaurant, the wait staff comes through like every 8 seconds, a different person. Hey, can I get you some water? Hey, would you like anything? Hey, do you want to see a wine menu? Hey, do you want any dessert? Hey, how's the food? Hey, do you want this? Hey, here's a free this. Here, hey, try a macaroon. And so when the next person came through, I said, is the restaurant that way? And I pointed toward the direction of Fury, and I said, is the restroom that way? And I knew the restroom was not that way, but it looked like it could have been the restroom. It's really where the wait staff goes in and out. And in this restaurant, they've made it very stylized so it doesn't, look unattractive and out of place. And so the waitress said, no, that's not the bathroom. The bathroom's that way, the other way. And I said, oh, okay. All right, fantastic. So anyways, I finish up my meal. I have my check paid, and then I get up and I start walking straight toward where I pointed at, where I said I thought the restroom was, even though I knew that was not the restroom, because that's the direction in which Tyson Fury was. And he was just maybe about 7 steps away from me, literally 7 paces. So I walk that way, and I come upon him. And let me just give you a little thought before that. When I saw him, my first thought was, number one, I'm glad I made the conscious decision to come to this restaurant. I always choose the finest experience. Whatever I'm going to do, give me the Rolls Royce quality so I can be around the Rolls Royce people. You dig? And that's so important, because the true wealth in your life are relationships. It's the people you know. That's the true wealth. If you were to go broke today, but your friends are well-to-do, you have what's called a safety net. You have people who can give you jobs, people who can invest in your business, people who can give you introductions. People are the true wealth in life. Moreover, I was thankful that I chose that restaurant. I put myself in the right position myself around the right class of person. And then secondly, mind you, you don't have to be a wealthy person to eat at the restaurant. They're not checking your bank statement before you come in. You just have to be able to order something, right? Now, in my case, granted, I was VIP at this restaurant, so they gave me prime seating. They probably wouldn't have sat most people so close to him. And surely what I'm about to tell you, I did. They didn't expect me or anybody else to do. But that's number one. And then number two is I really do pride myself on being suited and booted. You dig? You got to dress the part. You got to look like money, which is to say, I want to assign this quotation to Coco Chanel, but please feel free to correct me. The statement is that you should dress every day like you're about to see your worst enemy. And I believe it's true. And I would add to that, I always wear a suit when I'm committing a crime. You dig? When you're committing a crime, you wear a suit, people tend to question if they should even arrest you. Take notes from the politicians, right? So anyways, I was thinking like, wow, I'm very thankful that I'm dressed up. I'm wearing a mandarin collar linen shirt that was made from scratch, a fedora, wearing a pair of velvet slippers that I actually had handmade by my own design. I was like, I look good and I feel good and I smell good. Had the hustler's aroma on, you dig? So anyways, I walk over. There's a difference between me walking over wearing that in the context of the restaurant we were in and me walking over looking like a hoodlum, right? Especially being African American, you have to understand what your position is. So I walk over and I say, I hate to be impolite and interrupt your meal, but I also have to pay my respect. And I so much admire your work as a boxer and also the life you've lived as a man and the example you've created. I'm a fanboy right now. I'm going to need a picture. And he's sitting there and he has like his son or daughter, like a kid. I didn't even look at the kid, but I could have sworn it was like a kid to his right. And then he like 4 nondescript, oversized white guys with him. They could have been his friends, could have been his bodyguards. I don't know. And he was like, yeah, sure. No problem. And then so I sit down and we chopped it up a little bit. And when I had like started walking toward him and started talking and then sat down, like the whole staff in the restaurant was like, oh. But here's the thing. When you're suited and booted and you're also a VIP at the restaurant, they're very anxious about saying anything because they don't know if I know him personally. And they also aren't sure on even who he is because he's a boxer, right? And, an average basic white lady at a hostess at a nice restaurant, she doesn't know boxers like that. So she doesn't know who I am. She doesn't know who he is. She's just like, okay, we got 2 VIPs here. It's not terribly polite to go to someone else's table, but what can we do? So the staff is just like standing there like, oh, I don't know what to do. And they're too scared to approach either of us. So I sit down, we start chopping it up. And one of the goofballs that's with him is like, oh, he's actually not a boxer. He just like looks like him a lot. And I turn and look at him and I don't even acknowledge him. Why? Because he's not important. Why is he not important? Well, here's the thing. He's only able to be in the restaurant because he's with Fury. I could tell by his appearance, his dress, his manner of speech, he's no one important. I'm not even going to acknowledge what he's saying. Why? Because a boss doesn't address an employee. Anytime I'm out in the world and someone's not acting right, I say, go get your manager. Get your boss. I'm not going to talk to you. We're not even peers. And there's a couple of things that's important in this story. So he invited me to sit down. We started chopping it up. Number one, mentality. I didn't engage him. You really want to approach people in 2 lights, either A as a peer or B as a sincere student, right? I gave him compliment, like saying, yes, I admire some of your work. That's a compliment. But the way I interacted with him was man to man as a peer, right? In actual fact, the way I look at it is if he knew who I am and knew my life, he might be just as much a fan of mine as I am of his. So I engage with him on a peer level. Also, his minions who said something, I didn't even respond because they're not peers. Further, when you're on a pursuit to do something, keep your eyes on the prize. There will be many detractors and haters, and he was one such individual. Further, another thing to consider in terms of positioning and then psychological mentality, the fact that I'm in such an expensive restaurant dining in by myself really speaks volumes, because generally when people eat by themselves, they eat at the bar. There was no bar, and this is an upscale restaurant, or they take the food to go. Very few people will dine in alone at a 5-star, high-class, elegant, expensive restaurant, because who wants to spend that much money when it's not a special occasion? This is a restaurant you really come to if you're a celebrity, if you're super wealthy and you're trying to hide from people, or if it's your anniversary or like some really special occasion that requires celebration. So if you can afford to just go in there by yourself on a regular day and just have a meal, speaks well of you. And so I was really well positioned to walk up to him as a peer. When I engaged him, he said, yeah, sit down. And so I sat down and we talked as peers. That's an important concept. So many people will tell you, fake it till you make it. Well, you could do that. You could also just make it. When I tell you to go to the expensive restaurant, even if you don't necessarily have a high income, that's not faking it till you make it. That's making an investment in putting yourself in an elite circle among elite people. Further, another thing, after I finished talking with the champ one-on-one, the guy who's like started babbling, like, oh, he's actually not a boxer, he just looks like him. I handed him my camera and said, hey, take this picture. I didn't ask him if he would take it. I didn't say, would you do me a favor? I treated him like the peon and peasant that he really is. Hey, take this picture. Thanks, buddy. Why? Because the fact that when you tried to put a roadblock when I sat down to achieve my goal, now you're nothing to me. And more importantly, you're an ant and I would smash you with a sledgehammer. What I want you guys to understand is you should always be saintly, be polite and respectful, but nothing needs to get in between you and your goal, period. Confidence is hugely important. It took a lot of confidence to do what I did, but also support and having the right people around you is good. I sent Bridget a message saying, yo, Tyson Fury is behind me. What the? I already knew in my head I'm getting a picture, period. But it's always nice to have intelligent people around you. Birds of a feather flock together. Keep the right people around you. I want to address a couple points. Number one, we already addressed, you want to look like money. You want to dress the part. You want to dress as though you're going to see your worst enemy on that day. One funny note, just funny side note, when I sat down with Tyson and we were talking, one, he wasn't as big as I expected him to be. Now, mind you, I've seen a lot of celebrities in real life. I've also done a lot of work in front of the camera, modeling and acting. Everyone looks bigger on camera. But when you're talking about like a heavyweight boxer, you really expect them to be gargantuan. And I didn't get that sense. He was a very pleasant guy. But he was wearing a rapper chain. I kid you not. Like those long chains rappers used to wear in the 90s. My boy had on a rapper chain. I kid you not. When I saw Tyson Fury there, in my mind, I said, everything I've experienced today has brought me to this moment. Maybe most of these wealthy people in here don't even know who he is. I know, and I care. It means something to me. And I wouldn't care if that was Jay-Z. That could be any other wealthy person, and I would not care. But it's a fighter, and I love fighting. This is what I do. I'm going to go talk to him. I'm going to shoot my shot. That's the underlying message, is shoot your shot. But it's so much easier to shoot your shot when you've already shot 1,000 shots before that. So much easier to shoot your shot when you're in perfect physical condition. It's so much easier to shoot your shot when the uniform is there and it's looking good. You dig? So I was in an optimal situation. All lights were green. And I pressed the gas, Saints. Suleiman writes, what do you think about the Gypsy King as a human and a boxer? What do I think about the Gypsy King? I think that he's a unique fighter because of his gargantuan size. Number one, there are very few people who can be physically competitive with him because they don't have the size. Undoubtedly, in a violent sport, size is critical, but size is the most critical in the heavyweight division because there's no upper limit. In my division, light heavyweight, there's an upper limit. I'm not going to be really boxing guys who weigh more than 180 pounds. But in the heavyweight category, there's an infinite amount of height and infinite amount of weight. So at Tyson Fury's height, he's very hard to match physically. And then on top of that, he actually has boxing skill. He's elusive. He has a boxing IQ. He's able to throw the feint, stutter step, keep you off balance. And he's also a savage as well, which helps in boxing. He has that mean spirit. So from a fighting perspective, I think he's very hard to contend with. Mike Tyson, who has superior skill, superior technique, faster and stronger, he probably is just too small. So even a prime Mike Tyson might not be able to take out Tyson Fury because he's too small, even though he's a superior fighter. In terms of the Gypsy King as a human being, I think he seems like a lot of fun. Like I'd probably enjoy going out with him. We'd probably cut up quite a bit. he and I together, we probably end up locked up at the end of that night. So he seems like a fun guy. Certainly he's had some challenges with substance abuse. And as you know, I am one who is staunchly against all forms of intoxicant, including caffeine, soda, and things like that, against sugar. So certainly our past experience has been different, but he's a very disciplined man to be a boxer, and I think that I have a lot of respect for him based on that. Thank you for the question.